Hi, welcome to the show. Liberal activists sue to try to prevent Congressman Madison Cawthorn from running for re-election based on his actions leading up to January 6th. Sure, his comments were shameful, but I also believe the voters, not the courts, should decide his future. We talked to the lawyer who wants to ban him from the ballot. Coming up. But first, on Sunday night in Los Angeles, the LA Rams and Cincinnati Bengals are going to duke it out, Super Bowl 56. But if it's like most NFL games this year, the combat won't be limited to the gridiron. Chances are the fans in the stands at SoFi Stadium will throw down at some point during the game. It's been happening all across the league this season. Comb through Twitter, YouTube, any Monday during the NFL season, and you're bound to see videos like this. Pushing and shoving, wild punches, people falling across platforms and downstairs. It's a dangerous scene, not only for the fighters, but the people around them. Sports blogs often share the footage, with many finding it amusing. But there's really nothing funny about most of these incidents. They can result in serious injury and look no further than the site of Sunday night's Super Bowl, SoFi Stadium. Just 2 weeks ago, during the NFC Championship game, a man, 40-year-old Daniel Luna, was found unconscious in the stadium parking lot. Local officials say Luna pushed a man in the back and turned away. The man then punched Luna in the face, resulting in Luna hitting his head on the ground and getting knocked out. Luna spent the last week in a medically induced coma. But this incident is far from a one-off, and it's been an ongoing issue at games for a number of years. A comprehensive study by the Washington Post a few years ago found more than 6 fans arrested for unruly behavior at every single game. Every game. That means on the average, just on an NFL Sunday, nearly 100 fans across the country are thrown in jail for behavior like this. Joining us now is Sam Summers, a psychologist and professor at Tufts University. He's written extensively about the psychology of sports fans. Sam, thanks so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. All right, so what exactly do you think is driving all this craziness we're seeing in the stands, particularly as of late?
It's a great question, Dan. Thanks for having me. I mean, sports are wonderful. They're an escape for many of us. I think a lot of us, whether we have a rooting interest this weekend or not, are looking forward to watching the game with friends. And there's a lot to commend itself about sports. But the world of sports, it's also this cauldron of adrenaline and competition, and in some cases machismo, and then add alcohol to the mix, and it's competition, and it is a recipe for these kinds of squabbles, these kinds of altercations. And so one question you raise is this a new development, or is this something that's been going on for a long time in the world of sports, and we're just seeing it more often now that everyone has a smartphone and uploads things to social media?
Oh, that's fair, but it does seem it's worse in football, right? I mean, we see rowdy behavior, but football seems to be the worst, with the brawls seeming to happen on a regular basis.
It's a good question. It's in the science world, we call it an empirical question, and the data would be interesting. There was a big spike in these kinds of fan incidents with violence during the NBA playoffs, as you may recall, this past postseason as well. But you're right. I mean, those data are pretty clear when it comes to football. People come to watch these games for a lot of reasons. They enjoy what's on the field. They enjoy blowing off steam. Again, when you throw rivalry into the mix and you throw alcohol and competition, English soccer has a long history of this as well, the other kind of football. And so there are sports that seem, you don't see quite as much of this going on in the stands at Wimbledon.
See, that's true. I guess I worry that people are just madder across the country, that this is related in some indirect way to the divide in our country, that people are just pissed and they're going to a football game, and you could say that they're getting pissed by getting drunk, but I worry that that's part of the problem as well.
Yeah, I echo your concern here, Dan. I mean, I think there is something unique about the sports world, and you pointed out here, identified football games, and I think you're right about that. But let's not cast the blame here solely in the world of sports. I mean, let's think about the bad behavior we've seen over the last couple of years in airplanes and convenience stores and grocery stores.
Right.
School board meetings. How boring were school board meetings when you and I were younger? Those, no one watched those, and now they're like worldwide wrestling matches, right? And for that matter, in the walls of the United States Capitol. So I think you're right. We're capturing this in the world of sports, and there are a lot of ingredients that are problematic potentially in a sporting event, but this is not a sports-only problem.
Now, has the pandemic increased the number of fights, meaning people getting in fights over masks, et cetera?
I mean, there certainly seems to be, I guess the question is, certainly, yes, there's more, no one knew about masks. That wasn't a big thing. It's become this partisan issue now. Are the fights that used to happen over other things now happening over masks, I guess, is the question. But I don't recall seeing certainly the sheer number of social media videos with people throwing down in the grocery store aisles the way that you have in the last year or two. There does seem to be an angry flavor to a lot of interaction in this country right now.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about sports betting in a little bit. Does the fact that now sports betting is so much more accessible and so much more legal across the country, could that potentially be a factor, meaning people with such a stake in the game that, there is fury if their team is losing, that's no longer just about, hey, my team didn't win today?
Another interesting question, right? And which also involves the question of how many people there physically in person have money on these games. And I don't actually know the answer to that. A lot of the spread of gambling is things we do in our houses, right? Or at restaurants or on our phones. And so there are some studies out there that have suggested when you see major events like the Super Bowl, that there's a rise in other kinds of assault and aggression, not even at the stadium, but more generally after the game is over. During the game, people seem to be glued to the TV, but afterwards, both celebratory and otherwise, you do sometimes see a spike in aggressive incidents.
Yeah. All right, Samuel Summers, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Dan.
Coming up, it's not just the Super Bowl game, as I mentioned, that gamblers are betting on. That's boring to talk about that. How about who will win the coin toss? How long will it take to sing the national anthem? Who will the MVP thank first? Yes, you can bet on just about everything, even the color of the Gatorade that gets thrown on the winning coach. Coming up, we're going to find out about all of the craziest bets that you can make. Super Bowl Sunday isn't just a huge day for the NFL and for football. It's also a massive day for betting. And as legalized sports gambling continues to spread across the country, Sunday could not just be the biggest gambling day of the year, but one of the most lucrative days in the history of American sports books. And sure, you could bet the game straight up. The Rams are roughly 4-point favorites, but where's the fun in that? Super Bowl is the best time to tap into your inner degenerate gambler. One reason the Super Bowl is the most popular sports betting event is because of all of the unique prop bets that can be found in most other sports or even football games. If you look hard enough, there's almost nothing that you can't bet on during the big game. For instance, while most of the time gamblers would be betting on in-game action, this weekend's betting extravaganza begins before the game even kicks off, and you can wager on how long Mickey Guyton's rendition of the national anthem will take. Though the lines for that bet have not yet been set, but the over-under usually is set around 2 full minutes. In recent years, there hasn't been much of a trend in terms of how long the anthem goes. For since 2010, the over has hit 5 times, the under has hit 5 times, and there was 1 push. From there, you can bet on the coin toss. A winning $100 bet will pay out $195 in change, of course, equal between the two teams. If you're convinced you're the ultimate football strategist and so you know what will happen on the first offensive play in the game, you can bet on whether there will be a run or a pass, whether either quarterback will be sacked on their first offensive play, and whether either team will immediately turn the ball over. And if you're feeling really lucky, You can even bet on if either team will score a touchdown on their first offensive play. A winning $100 bet there would pay out more than $5,000 on DraftKings. And it only gets weirder from there. You can bet whether the first player to score a touchdown will be wearing a number over or under 23 and a half. A winning bet, $100 bet on 23 and under will pay out a little more than $171, while the same bet on 24 and over will net you $210. FanDuel will let you bet if an offensive lineman will score a receiving touchdown, which of course is very unusual, and that's why a $100 bet will pay out $2,000. When it comes to field goals, you can wager on if either an extra point or field goal attempt will hit an upright, but not the crossbar. And if it happens, $100 bet pays you $350. And if you think halftime entertainment is all about the music, come on! According to OddsShark.com, Sportsbook Bovada will let you bet not just on who will perform first, with Dr. Dre currently favored with plus 150 odds, but also whether any part of Eminem's performance will be censored and whether Snoop Dogg will smoke on stage. When it comes to the game's MVP, there's no shortage of things you can gamble on. From specific players, the favorite as of Thursday afternoon was Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford at plus 100, meaning a $100 bet will pay out $200. To what position the MVP will play, QBs, of course, are the favorite. Some sites even let you bet on who the MVP will thank first after winning the award. Their team, their family, the fans, or God. The odds there haven't been set yet. I wouldn't bet against God. And then there's a perennial favorite, Super Bowl prop bet. What color Gatorade will get dumped on the winning coach? As of Thursday, DraftKings had set clear or water as the favorite with plus 250, followed by orange at plus 300. In 2 of the last 4 Super Bowls, blue Gatorade was dumped on the winning coach. DraftKings currently has plus 400 odds for a blue sports drink shower. For more, let's bring in Eric Mitchell, president and resident prop bets expert at LifeFlip Sports. Eric, thanks for coming on the show. All right, so what is the weirdest prop bet you've seen for this year's Super Bowl?
It's one of my favorites, and it competes against the other sport, the big event that's going on right now. It is, does Cooper Kupp get more receptions in the Super Bowl than all the gold medals that Team USA is supposed to win? It's an interesting bet. It's a fun bet. You haven't seen that before. But again, at least the Super Bowl is not being held next to a nuclear reactor, so I guess we're winning there. But that's the strangest bet I've seen so far.
Wait, how many receptions he gets? I mean, how many receptions would be average in a game?
About 10 is what Cooper is averaging.
Okay. All right. So I would think, though, some of these really weird bets I would think could be dangerous for the bookies to take, because why can't someone close to Snoop tell them if he's going to smoke on stage? Or, you guess who the favorite is for the MVP, and a friend of theirs says, oh, if I win, I'm going to thank this person, and they go bet on it.
It's so weird. And you think about the numbers here, Dan. Let's talk about them. Legal betting, they're saying $1 billion on these what we're talking about, these prop bets. $1 billion. Then you go to the other side and add that in. It becomes over $7 billion in betting. So you're right. There could be players who hear that, but I really don't. I mean, Snoop smoking on stage, I think most of us are going to say take the over on that. Eminem being censored. There's some interesting ones, but you hit the first one on the head talking about the national anthem and how long Mickey Guyton will sing. I think that's hilarious that we're actually timing it. There's also another bet we saw recently that actually has, will she get equal? How close will she get to what we all consider one of the greatest national anthems sung all time at Super Bowl was Whitney Houston's, right? And I'm like, well, how do you rate that? But it is interesting, the players and how they're going to behave. I mean, a lot of them don't focus on it. This is Super Bowl week. They're not probably worried about helping out somebody make $250 off of some silly bet, off of what color shoes or who they'll thank first. So they already get healthy payouts from their bonuses for being at the Super Bowl, and they're focused on that. But it will be interesting if they know. But, I mean, some of these are just amazing, and it's cool to go from we used to just bet on the coin toss. Now we're betting on some interesting things, color of Gatorade.
But are people betting big on some of these crazy bets, or are these just sort of, smaller bets?
Some of these bets are pretty big. The national anthem seems to be the big one. Also betting on receptions, first play. I've seen some interesting money put down, thousands of dollars put down on an interesting money line today, which was betting that the Bengals will win the coin toss, defer, and the Rams will score on their first play of the game with a long pass bomb to Odell Beckham. That's a big one. Thousands of dollars are being placed on that. A lot of money action is there. And the halftime show, I got to tell you, Dan, this is the first halftime show that I've seen that the money lines are heavy on. People are prop betting on everything from order of who's gonna perform first to what songs will be performed or who's going to be censored the most and bleeped the most. And of course, we're talking about Snoop shoes. And we're also talking about Snoop smoking, which seems to be kind of ironic that that's what the prop bets are. But you haven't seen that about the Super Bowl show in a long time, especially at halftime.
Is it true you can bet on the commercials?
You can bet on the order of the commercials. There's even a bet, Dan, that I just saw was how soon in the Super Bowl will the commentators mention gambling and what the over-under is on the game. Because we've seen that the last few seasons as these big the sponsors start adding up here and jumping in where legalized gambling is everywhere. In fact, the NFL, there's a number of commercials that the NFL will feature telling you to be careful about betting on the game.
Right. What's your favorite long shot bet that you think could happen this year?
I think we're going to go with that first one, the long shot with the Bengals winning the coin toss. By the way, it goes all the way down to heads or tails. So Bengals calling tails, winning the coin toss, deferring until after halftime. Rams get the ball. First play is a long bomb to Odell Beckham. To me, that's crazy because we've had all those issues during the playoffs with the coin toss, calling who's going to win in overtime to calling that. That's a long shot. But you put money on that and that happens, and we've seen that in the Super Bowl. This is, this Rams team's been to the Super Bowl recently. They played in some big games. This is the Bengals' first time in 32 years. So who knows? They have that butterflies, and they're not the best defense that's out there. So to me, that's the long shot I would take. The other ones are just, I don't know. I'm more in the game kind of person, not betting on what person's shoes are going, but they're fun.
Something like the shoes bet. Do you have to go to some like random offbeat place, or are some of the major players taking some of these kind of silly bets as well?
Some of the major players are taking these silly bets as well. There are the typical offshore ones, but some of the bigger ones, they're getting involved in it. And, it's fun for them. But again, the national anthem, that comes back. It's funny. That's something that we know is going to happen. But the length of the national anthem seems to be the one everybody's taking some pretty heavy lines on. And again, the one we mentioned earlier. Go ahead.
It's just so funny to be thinking about like sitting there with your watch, right, as the national anthem, and you're like, rooting as if you're rooting for the game, right? Go, go, go. Wait, longer on brave. Wait, right? Go, go, go. I mean, it's anyway.
It's true. I had that happen at a Super Bowl last year. I was standing next to somebody who I was watching them, and I'm like, what are they timing? Normally people film hand over heart, and I look next to somebody, and they're literally timing this. I'm like, what are you doing? I bet on it. I'm like, oh, wow. So it's interesting. I don't know.
Eric Mitchell, thank you for coming on the show. Good luck.
Thanks, Dan.
Coming up, we talked about Super Bowl betting and fan fighting. How about the most controversial ads, from suicidal robots to sex? Companies seem to want to court some controversy. That's next. A state board of elections is insisting it has the power to block a sitting member of Congress from running for re-election. In a legal filing this week, the North Carolina Board of Elections says it can, if it chooses to, bar Republican Representative Madison Cawthorn from running for a second term. The board weighed in as part of an ongoing legal fight that began when liberal activists challenged Cawthorn's candidacy, saying he was unfit to run again based on the insurrection clause of the 14th Amendment. That group is citing Cawthorn's actions in the lead up to January 6th. Now, I think the things Cawthorn has said, and I'll tell you about them in a minute, are shameful, but trying to disqualify him as a political candidate using a constitutional clause meant for Confederate officers returning from the Civil War? Beat him at the ballot box, not in the courtroom. The activists say tweets like this one are proof that Cawthorn aided and abetted the insurrection. Quote, January 6th is fast approaching. The future of this republic hinges on the actions of a solitary few. Get ready. The fate of a nation rests on your shoulders, yours and mine. Let's show Washington that our backbones are made of steel and titanium. It's time to fight. The morning of the 6th, Cawthorn revved up the crowd at the Save America rally, repeating false allegations that the presidential election was stolen hours before rioters stormed the Capitol.
But my friends, the Democrats, with all the fraud they have done in this election, the Republicans hiding and not fighting, they are trying to silence your voice.
Again, I think it's dangerous stuff. And yet, this is just not the way I think we ought to remove elected officials from office. But joining me now is Ron Fine, legal director of Free Speech for People, the group who filed the challenge to Cawthorn's candidacy. Thanks very much for joining us on the program. Appreciate it. All right, before we get into the legal side of this, well, what do you make of my practical argument that this is not the way we ought to go about trying to keep someone off the ballot?
Well, thanks, Dan, for that question. And may I say that our legal team, both at Free Speech for People, which is a national nonpartisan organization, and in North Carolina, which includes 2 retired justices of the state Supreme Court, including a Republican elected justice, as well as the Chief Justice, is very proud to represent a diverse group of North Carolina voters. And we don't even know their political affiliation. So I don't think many of them would be comfortable being characterized as liberal activists.
Oh, come on. Wait. Hang on. You guys clearly decided to put together a group, or whoever decided to put the group together, of people who would seem like it was bipartisan. But this is not a bipartisan effort here. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, this is an effort by liberals, rightly or wrongly, we'll get to that in a minute, to keep them off the ballot. I mean, the notion that it's sort of like, oh, Republicans and Democrats are joining together in this effort, come on, that's not true.
Well, again, like I said, we've got a bipartisan or nonpartisan legal team that includes a former Republican justice of the state Supreme Court. So it's not really important what people's political leanings are, because we're trying to enforce a constitutional principle. Now, sometimes those constitutional principles might cut one way or the other. And it's important, like if we care about, let's say, freedom of religion in the First Amendment, that includes freedom of religion for people with your beliefs and people whose beliefs are very different from yours.
Absolutely.
But the 14th Amendment insurrectionist disqualification clause is another provision of the Constitution that's just as important. And in this case, the reason that provision was put into the Constitution, to address your earlier question, is there was a debate after the Civil War as to what to do with the ex-Confederate leadership that wanted to come back to Congress. And there was a faction that said, just let the voters, of Mississippi decide if they want to reelect Jefferson Davis. Let the voters of Georgia decide if Alexander Stephens, who was the vice president of the Confederacy, should return to Congress. There was a debate about that, but the Republican Congress decided and passed as a constitutional amendment that was then ratified by the states, a provision that said that these people who took an oath to support the Constitution, then broke that oath to aid and engage in an insurrection, are too dangerous, not just for the voters of their district, but for the entire country to ever be trusted with public office again.
All right, so let's talk about that from a legal perspective now. The definition of insurrection becomes critical here, right? He hasn't been charged with inciting an insurrection, right? And so it's sort of, the interpretation of the people filing this lawsuit that he was engaged in an insurrection. How do you overcome that?
So the question of whether someone engages in an insurrection is not just about the people, let's say, who stormed the Capitol. Just like in the Civil War, it wasn't just about the foot soldiers. And in fact, to go back to history, the Republican Congress that passed the 14th Amendment was actually much more concerned about the leadership than the foot soldiers. They actually weren't as much concerned about sort of an average Confederate, private.
Okay.
And they specifically wanted to exclude the leadership, many of whom had not fired a shot. Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, never bore arms in the Civil War.
Fair enough. But as a legal matter, though, where are you, what are you relying on to define what happened as a legal matter at the Capitol as an insurrection, because that's a necessary requirement for you to be able to even, begin to have a chance in this lawsuit.
Absolutely. That this has to be defined as an insurrection for this type of candidate challenge to go forward. And you can look at it one of two ways. One way you could look at it is to look at all the people who have said it's an insurrection. So those include, for example, Senator Mitch McConnell, the Republican Senate leader, who was, of course, a majority of the Senate leader.
But that's not going to get you there. That's not going to get you there as a legal matter.
You could look at President. You could look at Mr. Trump's defense lawyer in his impeachment trial, who said everyone agrees that it's an insurrection. But you could also look at it from what is the starting point of the legal definition of an insurrection. The historical definition in the 19th century and how courts define it now, which is a violent uprising that is intended to disrupt or overthrow the constituted government or the orderly transition of power. And that's what happened on January 6th.
Yep. Right. But the question becomes, again, what role did he play and what intent did he have with regard to the violent aspect of it? And I think that's where you may have a tougher legal argument to make. Final word on that?
Yeah, that is a critical question. And the legal definition of engaging in insurrection comes from a case in 1869, as it happens from the North Carolina Supreme Court, that said that engage in insurrection means to voluntarily aid in any way. And what we have with Madison Cawthorn is not just the tweets and the speech at the pre-attack demonstration that you showed earlier, but he actually told his followers to threaten their congressmen. And then the organizers of the January 6th events reported that he and his team, along with those of a few other members of Congress, not the majority, but a few other members of Congress, actually worked with them to help plan some of those events.
Yeah. All right. Well, we shall see. Ron, fine. Good conversation. Thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Coming up, I take issue with activists on this show a lot, on issues ranging from eternal affirmative action to negative media coverage of police. So what I'm going to tell you in our next segment may surprise some. It shouldn't, but it may. February is Black History Month. Now, generally, I don't like these months to make us think about a thing or a cause, because now there are so many of them that they feel like they don't matter much anymore. February is also National Cherry Month, Sweet Potato Month, and Creative Romance Month. But this one's different. If you regularly watch this show, you probably know I tend to be pro-law enforcement. I feel the media is unfair to cops these days. You may have seen me debate issues like affirmative action that I think needs to have an end date. I think many on the left are often searching for reasons to accuse people of racism when they disagree on race-related policy or legal questions. And I'm totally opposed to removing statues of American heroes like Theodore Roosevelt and Thomas Jefferson. But it's that reverence for history that makes Black History Month mean so much to me. I've co-written 4 history books about great forgotten trials, mostly involving former presidents with a transcript of the trial. But it's our newest book that will be released in May that has reminded me why thinking about Black history is so important. This one's about a 1956 trial of a 27-year-old, then little-known minister named Martin Luther King Jr., who was prosecuted criminally for organizing the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott. He took the stand for 4 hours in his own defense. And this trial catapulted him onto the national stage. But it wasn't just his testimony I'm thinking about during this Black History Month. It's the dozens of ordinary men and women of color who testified about the atrocities they endured just riding public buses to work with their kids, you name it. Sitting in the back of the bus was the law for men and women of color of Montgomery, but that was just the beginning. They were disrespected, had to pay in the front and then re-enter in the back. Many were called the N-word by drivers, some were beaten. It made me sick to read their accounts and to know that I was born just 10 years later. I also have the honor of saying that King's lawyer, Fred Gray, is also co-authoring the book with us. Fred also represented Rosa Parks and took on many other civil rights cases starting in the 1950s. When you look back at the various ways the white establishment tried to take him down, to stop him with everything from false charges to trying to draft him, it's infuriating. So I get it when people of color say the history of the way blacks have been treated in this country matters. This was state-sponsored discrimination. That's a different kind of discrimination. It's important to remember that it was relatively recently that many states were ensuring legally that black people were mistreated. The fight for equality was ugly and difficult. I think about that in the context of every discussion I have. It wasn't intentional, but I came to realize that there's a sort of a civil rights thread through all of the books my co-author David Fisher and I have written. The first, Lincoln's Last Trial, involved Lincoln representing a murder defendant just 9 months before he got the Republican nomination for president. The next, Theodore Roosevelt for the Defense, was about Roosevelt taking the stand for 8 days after he was sued for libel by a political party boss. Then John Adams, Under Fire, the Founding Fathers' Fight for Justice, and the Boston Massacre murder trial. And last year, we released Kennedy's Avenger, about the wild, forgotten case against Jack Ruby, the man who shot and killed Lee Harvey Oswald. After truly studying them, I came to revere each of those presidents even more. And here's the indirect connection to Black History Month. Lincoln's obvious, the man who literally went to war to end slavery. Roosevelt was the first president to invite a black man to the White House for dinner when he welcomed Booker T. Washington, the great educator, former slave, and African-American leader, to dine with his family in 1901, when segregation was the law of the land. John Adams was one of the Founding Fathers consistently opposed to slavery, calling it an evil of colossal magnitude. And finally, John F. Kennedy became a strong advocate of civil rights. All of these presidents took small or large steps towards ending the evils of discrimination and racism. But by the time John Kennedy died, there were still whites-only restaurants, public parks, water fountains, and bathrooms in this country that I love so much. And while I may not agree with many activists today about certain policies, I certainly recognize the personal nature of some of the arguments. And the beauty of appreciating our history, good and bad, is that the history doesn't need to get political. So I want to salute the great black leaders and ordinary folks who fought for equality. Some who were jailed, beaten, or died in an effort to get our government to do the right thing. While we shouldn't need a devoted month to think about any of this stuff, is as good a time as any during Black History Month to thank leaders like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, Thurgood Marshall, Martin Luther King Jr., just to name a few. They were on the right side of history, and many made them feel like they weren't. So today I thank them for forcing the rest of the country to recognize injustice. I truly appreciate Black History Month. And now we get back to discussing the issues of today. Coming up, a 911 call leads officers to a suspected carjacker where he's caught red-handed. That's right, the guy tries to carjack 3 more cars while shooting at officers. The whole thing caught on police body cam. It's up next. We're on scene with the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department showing the dangers that law enforcement officers face every day. It starts with the 911 call, with a man saying he was carjacked while leaving work.
I just had someone come up to me, showed a weapon, appeared to be a weapon. He did cock it, and then he took my car.
The suspect, Kevin Slaughter, is well known to local and state police. He took the victim's cell phone in the carjacking, and deputies were able to use the phone to track the stolen Ford Explorer, where Slaughter was seen on surveillance video walking away from the vehicle in the parking lot of an apartment complex. As deputies worked to set up a perimeter, they found Slaughter walking in the street.
Go party!
In full view of deputies, the suspect tried to carjack a driver stopped at a red light, then fired 4 shots at deputies. The light turned green, and the potential victim sped away. Slaughter walked towards another car, but that driver also took off. Slaughter was able to get the driver and passenger in a 3rd car to get out.
Where's he at? Go! Pursue! Let's go! Go, go, go!
Slaughter then led deputies on a chase and drove the stolen car to a parking lot.
40 to 10-9. On fire.
Slaughter got out of the car and then tried to carjack another driver when deputies shot him once in the stomach. He survived and was taken to the hospital and then charged with multiple crimes, including 3 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of carjacking, one count of attempted carjacking. He has been denied bond. Investigators found a stolen Glock 22 in the car with an empty magazine. No deputies or civilians were injured, which is amazing, at any of the crime scenes. The incident remains under investigation. Joining me now is Sean Six Larkin, retired Tulsa police lieutenant. Sean, great to have you back. All right, so take me through this again from the deputy's perspective, looking for the suspect when he walks right in front of them.
So, Dan, when an officer gets out of the academy, they start what's called field training, where they ride with older, experienced officers. And one of the things that is so important that is taught is when officers are responding to a shooting, responding to a robbery, guess what? The suspect's not there. We need just enough officers to go there to take the reports, talk to witnesses. Everybody else needs to be looking for the suspects. And so in this case, they were able to track the cell phone with the victim's car. They find it unoccupied. So what you want to do is have all the officers set up a perimeter to try to keep the suspect contained in there. And then you start working that perimeter, inward when you start eliminating where this guy could be. The fact that he walked essentially right out to the deputies as they're setting that perimeter up, I don't want to say made things easy, but it brought him out to them. And then you see that first, volley of gunfire going on between the suspect as well as the deputies.
And he's trying to carjack someone. He then fires shots at deputies. Let's just watch that section again. Two drivers able to get away before, the suspect drives off in the third car.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that third car stayed put, because you actually see the car behind them, go around the car that's not moving. Listen, anybody out there watching this, if you see somebody out there with a gun, drive off. Don't stick around and watch what's happening. But, and that's how fast these type of things happen. And in other segments we've done here with you, I talk about a suspect that's armed out in public. Even if they have the gun down to their side, the officers have to make a decision. Hey, is this guy a threat that he potentially not only could hurt me, but could he hurt somebody in the public? Could he take somebody hostage? Could he carjack somebody? And that's why these split-second decisions of deadly force oftentimes are made before he gets a chance to do a carjacking or take somebody hostage. So you can prevent that.
And it was lucky that this ended in a parking lot, right?
Yeah, very much so. And that's exactly as you said. He was trying to carjack another car. He obviously carjacked a Prius. Not trying to make fun of a Prius, not probably the quickest car to get away. The deputies were close by. They saw what he left the scene in. He was trying to jack, another car, I'm guessing so that they wouldn't know, hey, he's jumped from the Prius into the second car and then could try to drive off. Very lucky it ended as quick as it did. And, the fact that nobody else was hurt other than the suspect. Another thing I want to say, hey, you said it right at the end, he's held without bond. That's a big deal. Guys like this that are committing these type of crimes, these violent crimes, are the people that need to be held without bond.
Yeah, well, I would hope that this wasn't a particularly close call in a case like this.
You never know.
I know. No, believe me, I get it. But with 3 attempted murder charges, et cetera. All right, Sticks, good to see you again. The beard looks great.
Glad to be back. Thank you. Puberty hit me.
That does it for us tonight. NewsNation Prime with Marnie Hughes starts right now. Have a great weekend. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.